Okay, go ahead, we're recording.
All right, perfect. So welcome everyone. I'm Amalia Duarte. I'm on the Mendham Township Committee, and I'm here this evening with Barbara Kuppersmith with the League of Women Voters of Morristown area. So as we all know, this is going to be a mostly vote by mail election. And I decided to co-host this workshop, this webinar tonight, because I was getting a lot of questions from residents. You know, how do I vote by mail? How do I fill out the ballot? Where do I drop it off? Is it okay to use a drop box? Should I mail it in? All sorts of questions, and really almost immediately after it was announced. So I thought it would be great to partner with the League of Women Voters, who is a nonpartisan grassroots organization, to clarify the process and answer questions and hopefully dispel some of the myths that might be out there too. Because I know for a lot of people, you may have never voted by mail before. I did it for the first time during the primary. It's super easy, but you do have to be careful to make sure that your vote is counted. And that's what we want, for every vote to be counted. I just want to mention before I introduce Barbara that if you're interested in joining the League of Women Voters, which I did recently, they will send you this lovely little notebook. Put in a plug for the League. And what you do is you go to their website, lwv.org, and you put in your zip code and you can figure out which league covers the community where you live in. So without further ado, I want to introduce Barbara Kuppersmith. She is the Voter Services Co-Director for the League. She is going to present for about 15 minutes, and then we're going to take questions. And also thank you to those who sent in questions in advance. She will cover those. So 15 minutes Q&A, another 15 minutes, more Q&A, and then we'll just wrap up. So this will be very informal. So again, let's just give Barbara the 15 minutes to go through the beginning of the presentation, and then we'll break into questions. So with that, I'm going to go on mute. And thank you so much, Barbara, for doing this.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you for joining us. I was going to apologize for any little glitches in Zoom and all that. We've already done it. I've done this many times, but there's always something new that comes up. And I want to say thank you, like I said, to everybody. This presentation is a joint collaboration that I did with the West Morris, Warren County League of Women Voters, Megan Davis, and we started it from a presentation done with South Monmouth League of Women Voters. So we all try to work together, and I will hopefully answer a lot of your questions. So what I would say is if you do have an additional question, just put it in the chat, but start out with the word question. So when I go through, I can easily find them. And like I said, I'm going to go through part of it, answer any other questions on that part, and then go to the next part, and then go from there. All right, so the League of Women Voters, like I said, we did this. We're a nonpartisan organization, encourages people to be informed participants in our democracy. Nonpartisan means that we do not support one political party or another, nor do we support one candidate or another. We do take positions on voting rights, social justice issues, the environment, fiscal policy, and much more. And I will mention some of the positions we've taken on the questions, the three constitutional amendment questions on the ballot this year. Love to have anyone check us out. I will give all kinds of links at the end. This is a link to Morristown, to our actual website. It's better to go to our actual website, which is lwvmorrisarea.org. And you can sign up through there, or you're welcome to be just a volunteer. And I will tell you, I will have a cheat sheet at the end that has a lot of information on it. So you don't need to try to copy all the, links and everything that I have throughout the presentation. And this is just some of the sources. Like I said, Morris County, the different counties we tended, because Megan and I are in, Morris and west of there, those are the counties we put on here. So the purpose is mostly for people that have already registered. But you can register. I will talk about that. COVID's made this election a little bit different than normal. And all ballots will be counted. That's one thing. I put this in here because Sometimes I forget that I think in the past, if it was provisional or even a vote by mail, it might not have been counted unless it needed to be counted, but that is not the case anymore. So make a plan. Where do I start? Well, we have a website called Vote 411. I believe if you do .org definitely works. I believe .com also works. And has a lot of information about where to find things. You can look up your voter ID. You can check your ballot. There's a lot of things you can do through this website. We also do send out questions to any elections in our specific league's area. So we definitely should be posted. I think every candidate that's running for the whole Morris County, but I can't promise you we only count on people to reply to us. So we may or may not have information from them. Okay, you can learn about your candidates, okay, just a couple little notes. So check your voter registration. This is a link, which again will be on my cheat sheet, to go and check if you're registered. Because you have to be active to vote. If you don't want to deal with that, call the Board of Elections, or you can call the county clerks. They're very willing to help you when they can. I'm sure as it gets closer and closer to the election, it's going to be a little crazier, but I called today and got right through. A new thing that just has been initiated, which is great, a register online, so that you can register. And the best way, oh, I'm sorry, I went forward a slide. That's that happens a lot to me. You can do it with your driver's license, which is probably the best way to do it. Or you can do it with your social security number. And the signature on your driver's license is the signature that will be the one that's used for when you sign. And it's on the back of your driver's license, so you know what it looks like. If you use your social security number, you have to be prepared to either upload a signature. I believe you can sign on like an iPad or something like that. Now, these are the things we're voting on. Very important. President and vice president. Congress, we're voting on the state U.S. Congress and the U.S. House. U.S. Senate, I'm sorry. We are also voting on freeholder in Morris County. County clerk is not in this election for Morris County. A lot of local town and city officials and the local Board of Ed. I just can't emphasize how important it is to vote, because people say my vote doesn't count. Well, I had someone that was running from the league. She was running in a town for the committee with council, same thing. She lost by like 7 votes. Can you imagine the next day when 7 of her 8 or 9 of her friends said, I just didn't get there, I didn't bother. Or I voted for the president, but I didn't do the council. Amalia understands this. It is really important, and it really does make a difference at the local level. And the freeholders, they decide how your money is spent in the county. Really important to vote on them. We are also going to be voting on 3 ballot questions. First one, I have them out of order, but the first one is to legalize marijuana. Maybe some of the young people will vote because of that. Second one is property tax deduction and exemption for peacetime veterans. And the third one is they want to put an amendment into the New Jersey Constitution to delay the state legislative redistricting process and use of new district census, that it would be after, if they want to delay it a year, if you will be getting it the year, if they get the data too late. Personally, well, the league is saying this. They are recommending not to vote no on it, because they feel like we shouldn't make a permanent change to the Constitution for something that's temporary because of COVID. Okay, go ahead. All right, who's getting a paper ballot? Every active registered voter will automatically receive a paper ballot to the address that is on file with the Board of Elections. They will, and that they'll be for the November 3rd election. I would recommend they all have to be mailed by Monday. So if you don't get it by in a few days, call the county clerk to find out why. Going to define what an inactive voter is. I have a lot of notes, but I'll do a summary of it. That's a person whose election mail. So let's say a sample ballot was sent to them, or a vote by mail ballot was sent to them, and it's returned to the Board of Elections. they then move them into inactive status. So those of you that are getting ballots for your kids that have long moved, they're in California, New York, wherever, don't just take the ballot and throw it out. Send it back to the Board of Elections with a note. They have moved, registered in another state. The other way that this can get, or if someone dies and you get a ballot, anything like that, send it back. If you get one that's somebody that doesn't live there anymore, send it back, because then this moves them into inactive status with the Board of Elections. And if they haven't voted in 4 years, then they can take them off the rolls and not waste the mail and the paperwork and the time. The way, if somebody is inactive, like let's say you didn't vote, or your son was away and didn't vote, but now he's home and wants to vote and didn't get a ballot, they can request a vote by mail ballot for this election, and that when they vote, that will make them active again. Best thing is just don't get into that status. This is if you haven't received the ballot by October 9th, okay? Check the trash or the recycling to make sure you didn't think it was a sample ballot, because there will be no sample ballots this year. And these are the phone numbers for some of the local clerks. Ann Grassi is our local clerk in Morris County. Again, these numbers will be on my cheat sheet at the end of the presentation. What does the ballot look like? So these are the envelopes. This is what Morris County looks like. Different counties look different, but this is Morris County. And what happens is this is the outside envelope. You will get this, and inside will be an instruction sheet, a ballot, an envelope to put the ballot in, the security envelope, and an envelope to mail the ballot back in. So, and somebody, that helped me with this, they said, practice good citizenship, which is true. You get a ballot, before you open this, look at it. Does it have the wrong address on here? Is it the wrong district? Is anything wrong with this? If you're in Congressional District 11 and this says Congressional District 5, it's wrong. It's the wrong name or whatever. Send it back to the clerk and call them to get the right one. This is your ballot. How do I fill it out? Again, both sides, because the ballot questions are on the back in Morris County. Make sure you use black or blue pen. This is like the little things you did when you did SATs and stuff back in school. You have to fill in the circle. You don't just check it, you fill it in, and then because it's scanned when they count it, it's counted by scanning. If you misplaced your ballot, incorrectly mark it, spill coffee on mine like I did just before this webinar started. All you have to do is request a replacement ballot from the county clerk's office. And again, they are very willing to help you. If you received assistance, so let's say you're helping your mother or somebody that can't do it themselves or whatever, they need help, there is a place either on the inside, on one of the ballot, either on the ballot or the flap, the secure ballot, that will let you complete that you have been assisting this person. We had one question come up that was, what if my mother can't sign? She can only do an X. Gotten 2 different answers. One is do the X and then fill out the assistance. The other is if you're the power of attorney especially, you can send in a signature change form, and I will talk about that further on. So this is your inside secure envelope. In Morris County, are you the person providing assistance? I probably can't read that, but this is where you would fill it out if you help somebody with the ballot. You put the ballot in, do not attach anything, damage the flap or anything. And once it's in, there's this place to seal it over here. All right, and that's a strip. It's not the glue that didn't hold 1 year and all kinds of crazy things that happen. So again, and this is on the outside of the ballot. This is your certificate that verifies your signature. So again, do not detach, don't forget to sign. Ballots will be rejected if they are not signed. Read the instructions. And again, I said you can request a new ballot if something's wrong. Here's a little bit closer look at the certificate. We're really emphasizing this because I think people are very nervous and not going to do the certificate correctly. And I want to point out, this is my ballot. I marked things off. This is a scan code. that when they get it in, so what happens, you put it in the outside thing, you mail it, they open the outside envelope, they have your sealed certified envelope. They scan it in, and that's why you can check almost immediately whether or not they received your ballot, because they've scanned it in. We'll talk about that too. Your ID number is located right over here. I recommend either take a picture of this or write it down. Keep track of it, because you might need to use it if you're setting up an account after you mail everything back. Okay. And I will get to signature because that's important. So, how do I complete the voting process? Then you put it in the larger outside envelope. If someone else is taking it to the post office or wherever they're dropping it off, they should complete the bearer portion. I believe in Morris County, it's the upper level one. It's on the inside of the flap. Remember, this is sealed. It's pre-postage paid, so you don't have to worry about postage or anything like that if you decide to mail it. Security and anonymity. So the certificate contains your signature that is matched against your signature on file. So when someone says, I'm going to vote twice, or the wrong person's ballot came to my house, but I'm going to fill it out anyway. Well, when you go to sign it, your signature is not going to match. And they're going to say, hey, this isn't the right signature. There's something they will do in that case, but you can't really get away with vote. And it's illegal also to vote twice. And then once the Board of Elections receives the inner envelope and verifies the signature, which again we'll talk about, they tear off the flap and put your ballot in a separate place. So sealed envelope with the ballot in it. Those are not opened until they start processing. And I believe this year they're starting October 24th, because normally they wouldn't do it until the day of the election. But this year they've been allowed to do it earlier so that they don't get totally swamped on the day of the election. So you're anonymous. They know you voted, but they have no idea who you voted for. There's no record of that. So avoid rejection. Check your certificate. Don't forget to sign. That's the other thing. Don't sign with your grocery store signature. You should sign with your signature you used when you registered. Now, a lot of people say to me, wait, what happened? I signed 30 years ago. I don't remember what it looks like when I go to the polls. I look in the book and I kind of copy it. First of all, if you have your middle initial, your full middle name, don't have it at all, that doesn't matter. That's not what they're looking for. They're looking for signature. Someone asked me, if I spell it wrong, will they discount it? I would hope so, because I don't know if you should spell your name incorrectly. It might be someone else trying to do it. The League of Women Voters, along with NAACP, sued back before the primary to get what's called the Ballot Cure Act. It was temporary for the primary, and now it's law. What has happened is, if they look at your signature and they say, this doesn't look right, and they have to get in touch with you within 72 hours of saying it's not a right signature, to give you a chance to cure. I'm not sure why they use cure, but to cure and to fix what's going on. You need to get that back to them within 48 hours before the election is certified. The election will be certified November 23rd. So you have until November 20th to cure this if you get that note. I would tell you, if you get the note, do it right away. But this gives them time that even if they're counting ballots like a week after the election, because they still haven't finished counting, it gives you time to correct it. And let me tell you, I spoke to somebody that's worked for the county, and so they don't willy-nilly do it. You know, it's one person looking, and there were commissioners, and they're Democrats and Republicans and other people. So let's say I look at it and I say, this signature doesn't look right. I'm not going to I can't on my own say reject, or we need to send it for a cure. They're going to have at least one other person look at it and say, yeah, I agree with you, or I don't agree with you. Then they might have a third person. But again, the fact that you can cure it really helps. For example, this woman that worked there, she said to me, I looked at the signature. It looked really shaky compared to the roll books. And then she looked. The person was 90 years old, and they'd signed up when they were like 30 years old. Yeah, well, of course it was shaky. So it's not, I mean, people try to put down, the Board of Elections, I've met with them, they really try to do their best. And there are a lot of laws in place and procedures in place to not mess things up. The best thing is don't wait. Your election day, that's one of the biggest reasons ballots were not accepted in the primary. Your election day is the day you receive your ballot. You do not wait to need to the 3rd to turn it back in. That's not, when you have a paper ballot, you can do it anytime, that as soon as you get it. Now, no postmark is needed if the Board of Elections receives it by November 5th, which is the Thursday after elections. But if it's, but they will count it up until November 10th, until 8 p.m., which I believe is the following Tuesday, or following Monday, I think, if it's postmarked by the 3rd. So they're really putting in place a lot of things that even if the mail is slow, you will get your ballot in if you want to use the mail. And that is one of the things that the VBM education bill that went through, it changed the date, and it also changed about bearers, which I will talk about. This is a chart from the primary for all of New Jersey. The biggest reason ballots were rejected, they got them too late. All right, people just forgot to mail them or whatever. Other, I'm trying to find out what other is. It could be something that she said to me. Sometimes somebody said, you know, I'm living in New York now, but I forgot to register in New York, so I'm sending this in. Well, technically they can't register, they can't vote in New Jersey anymore, so that would be rejected. We are having a webinar with the League of Women Voters on October 30th. It's a Friday, and Tanisha Way will be on that call, where I'm hoping she can address this question when she gets on the call that day, or at least we can get an answer before the call, and I will have it for you. We see, move down, signature does not match. That's the 4th reason now. And actually in Morris County, it's the 5th reason. So we really want to try and not have these things happen. So what I'm going to stop, I'm going to look and see if we have any questions in the chat that are relevant to what I'm talking about now. All right, I will talk about, someone asked me where we can drop it off. I will talk about the next section. Question, is there a way to check signature on file? That was from Nancy. No, because if you could check your signature, anybody could do that. I mean, if people, that could be fraudulent because someone can, if they can figure out how to sign in, they could copy your signature, and you really don't want that to happen. All right, question, how can I find if my voter signature has my middle initial in it? You can call the Board of Elections and they will tell you. And I will also tell you a way that you can update your signature. And like I said, it doesn't matter if it's your middle initial, your middle name, they're really only looking at your first and last name. So I'm going to see if there's any questions here. Somebody asked specifically, I don't know who it was, their daughter has moved to Massachusetts. She is still getting a ballot in New Jersey. She's listed as an active voter. She has called numerous times, and I think written a letter as well. So I spoke to, I don't have the specific information, but I called the Board of Elections. She said, you can email elections@co.morris.nj.us. It's in the Morris County website, and tell them your name, your address, and date of birth, and it will, that you no longer live here. The other thing is, and this is why I emphasize this, if the parent has the ballot, return it so she becomes inactive in New Jersey. And no, it will not affect her ballot and where she lives now.
Can
Yep.
you just give that address again and the elections dot and
Sure.
chat?
Okay, see, it's elections@co.morris.nj.us. Okay. I'm just looking to see if any of these other questions are, I think none of the other questions are
And just
relevant
to
to this
mention,
part.
if someone has a question that they just thought of as Barbara was going through the presentation, you can just put it into the chat. And maybe at the end, we'll allow people to raise their hand and ask questions live.
That would be good. Okay. All right. So the second part of my presentation, a little break there. This is also very important. How do I return my ballot? There's a number of different ways. The first way I'm going to talk about is in a drop box. Now, I know Amalia told me, and I think I put it down here at the very bottom, the Mendham Borough Police Station, 3 Cold Hill Road South, has a drop box. It will look like this. It is under 24-hour surveillance, cameras and everything like that. It is emptied every day by 2 representatives from the Board of Elections, and includes Democrats and Republicans. So it's not like I'm going there and I'm like, oh, this is a Democratic town, I don't want their vote to count, I'm going to throw out the ballot. You can't do that. There are a lot of safeguards in here. If you touch someone else's ballot, so let's say I take my mother filled her ballot out, she put in the envelope, everything, but I'm taking the ballot to the drop box. Technically, I'm supposed to fill out what's called a bearer portion, and I think I showed you that in the beginning's other slides. So it's usually either on the outside of the envelope or the inside flap of the mail-in envelope. And you can bring 3 ballots of somebody else to the drop box or the post office. If it is the same household, and this was part of the BBM ballot, the law that went in, you can do 5 households. Drop boxes will be open 24/7. They will close though 8 o'clock on election night. They will be picked up probably after, I don't know if they're going to go through that night or very early in the morning. They will not get, if they're put in the drop box the election day, they won't be counted obviously until the next day because they won't have gotten them yet at the election office till the next day. In the mail. So all ballots come with a prepaid postage marked envelope. I know the state is working very hard with the post office, and I talked to my mailman today and I asked him, he said they're getting them out the same day they get them, and they're getting them returned the same day. Now I know in Madison, because we have a drop box, most people I know are bringing them to the drop box. To be sure, don't wait. And even if you do mail it on the 3rd, just make sure it's postmarked. And as long as it's received by November 10th, it will be counted. And I think I mentioned they will start processing them. And I don't think they're actually counting. They will start processing October 24th, so that it's not as much of a backlog. It gives people time to correct signatures if that's needed. Bottom line, don't wait till the last minute, however you choose to do it. The third way you can do this is you can go to a polling location. And a couple of points about that. Each municipality has to open at least 1 polling location. The one for Mendham is at the bottom here, Emergency Services Building, 1 Cherry Lane, Brookside. The reason they're only having 1 is because, I spoke to Dale today at the Board of Elections. We normally have 5 or 6 at least per municipality. They really did not want to open that many and then find they couldn't get enough poll workers, because I know I would normally work. I'm not working. I won't go inside and be inside with people even with masks on. A lot of people won't. They have plenty of poll workers for the ones that they do have, but it's up to, I think it has to be up to 50% in the whole county and 1 per municipality. So Parsippany might have 2 or 3. Some of the other larger towns might have 2 or 3. But there's only 1, so you cannot go to your normal location and vote. If you do decide to vote, okay, you can bring the ballot inside the mailing envelope, so both envelopes sealed, and you can bring that to the poll. You have to stand in line if there's a line. You sign the book and you hand it to the poll worker, and they put it in secure. I'm not sure if they have a box or an envelope or something, but that's why it needs to be in the secure box. And you can only bring yours. You cannot bring someone else's to the polling place. And obviously, the polling places are only open on November 3rd. polling location info, all right? If you want to vote in person, you must do it through a provisional ballot. So basically what you're doing is a ballot, just like the one you got in the mail, and extra verification. The reason they do this, they have to be able to make sure that you didn't already send in your ballot that you got in the mail. So they will not look at the provisional ballots at the earliest November 11th, because they have to make sure that all the other ballots, because they can receive them up to November 10th, that they've all been received, they've been checked in, they've been scanned, they've been counted. Then they go to the provisional and they make sure that you have, so they might say, oh, she did a provisional at the polls, but she already sent in her ballot, so we can't count this provisional one. So they have, and then it is illegal to vote more than once. So people think, oh, I'm going to try. It isn't going to work. It isn't going to work. The only people that can vote on a machine, and I like to say rather than mail-in ballot, I've been saying paper ballot. This election is a pure paper election. That's how we're voting. And you cannot use a machine unless you have a disability. There will be one machine, but it's just for disability, and I believe it's for Braille and people that can't read, so it can be talked to them, or they can read the Braille. So if they're blind or something. I don't think it's just if you are frail, that's not the reason for a disability. It's if you have a disability that need a machine to read it to you. Okay. So how do I track my ballot? This is a big question I get also. How do I know my ballot was received? This is the website. Again, this will be on my cheat sheet. You can go to this website and you can create what's called, you sign up for a public access link. You can use your driver's license, social security number, or your voter ID. The voter ID is the best, because if you signed up with your driver's license, they won't have your social security number on file. If you signed up with your social security number, they won't have your driver's license on file. So your voter ID is the best. And then once you complete it, you click mail-in ballot history and you will see received. You will also see after the election, you will see accepted or rejected. But as far as I know, that will not be until totally after the election, because even if you see rejected, if it was for the signature, you've had to choose to correct it. And if it was for something else, you cannot correct it. Like somebody asked me, or I got some questions, what if I change my mind? Well, you know what? Just like when you're in the polling booth and you hit vote, it's done. You can't do anything else about it. So make sure you're doing it correctly. If you're having trouble with it, because sometimes it's been much better, they've corrected it, the state has done a phenomenal job. But if you're having trouble, call your election, call the Board of Elections. They will also give you your voter ID number if it's not working. I had a little bit of trouble, so I just waited a day or two, and the computer kind of rebooted, and I was able to get in without a problem. Let's see. What's the things to remember? The highest reason for ballot rejection, ballots have been received after the polls close. So be proactive. You can track your ballot, and all votes are counted unless there is an error. The trend for fraud is just about zero. Yes, there are mistakes sometimes. Like I do know that some people are getting ballots, like I said, for someone deceased. Or in New York, the vendor sent out the wrong ballots to the wrong people. But those are mistakes. They are being corrected and they're taken care of. And there are processes in place to make sure that you can't do anything with that. You can't take advantage of it. Okay, so dates to remember. This is the deadline. Monday was the deadline. All ballots had to have been mailed in Morris County by then. So I'd be curious, I'm just curious if maybe at the end, if anybody has not received their ballot yet. Or maybe even just put in the chat, not received yet. 13th is the last day to send in if you want. Oh, I didn't mention this. I'm sorry, I forgot about this. What you can do, so that it's the last day to send in a voter registration form or to register online. The thing you can do with your registration form, and I'm going to skip ahead real fast, besides besides voting, besides registering to vote, up here on the top, hopefully you can see it, signature update. You can update your signature. If you're not sure what your signature is or how you signed it, just redo it. Send it in before the 13th, so it gets there before the 13th, and now you know this is your signature, and take a picture of it. You can change your political party affiliation. This is more important for the primary general election. Everybody votes. You can sign up to do vote by mail for the rest of your life, okay? You can do an address change on here. There are a lot of things you can do on this form. So that's a little bit about that. Let me go back to my thing here. Okay, the 23rd, why it's the last day to apply for a vote by mail ballot. You say, well, we're all getting vote by mail ballots, but this is the way. If you are inactive, this is the date you have to apply to a vote by mail by this date, so that you will make yourself active, and then you will get a vote by mail ballot and you can mail it. And then November 3rd, the most important date. You have to have voted by now. It's the general election. And don't be surprised if we do not know for some elections that night. And it might be up until, like in New Jersey, people can turn and vote by mail ballots up until the 10th. They do have statistics, like if they know candidate A is winning by 100 votes and we haven't received 200 vote by mails, well then that could make a difference. But if candidate A is winning by 100 votes and we haven't received, there are 50 people that haven't voted yet, well, that's not going to make enough of a difference for that person not to win. So that's a little bit about that. I want to recommend you go to Vote 411. It's funded by the League of Women Voters Education Fund. The League does a lot of really good things. And I'd love to have some people join us to check us out. You can volunteer. The biggest thing we're doing right now are tabling events. I'm doing one at the Morristown Farmers Market. Wonderful there. I'm doing that pretty much every Sunday through October. Getting people to vote. Mostly what we're doing is getting people information. And I ask 3 questions. Are you registered to vote? I'd say 98% say yes. Although I did register 3 people this past weekend. Do you know you're getting a paper ballot? I'd say Morristown 50% have gotten them, 50% hadn't. The biggest question I try to ask, do you know that if you go to the machine, if you go to the polls, you still have to vote by paper? I'd say 80% of people didn't know that. So that's a lot of what we're doing. We do that at the Morristown Farmers Market. I do it at the Chatham Farmers Market. We run the forums for the state, for the, different leagues do forums. We have Freeholders Forum, which is for Morris County, coming up on Monday, October 12th, starting at 7:30. You can go to our website and sign up for it. We also are doing Chatham Township, which none of you are from. That's the 15th. We're also doing webinars. I did one last night on voting. Once each week we're doing a webinar. Next week will be about how COVID has impacted the schools. The week after that, I believe, is health issues that have come up. And the last one on October 30th I mentioned is how do you know your vote's secure? So you can go to our website and sign up for those. And again, you can volunteer, you can just help out, just check us out at any of the places we go to. We'd love to have you, become, that's how we met, that's how Amalia became a member. She was speaking at some event that we co-sponsored and she signed up. And I'm going to do this also. Don't forget to do your census, okay? The census is extremely important if you haven't done it. And one of the things I mentioned to everybody is you may have done it, but make sure your neighbors have done it. Make sure your neighbors have done the census. Make sure your family members have done it. Make sure everybody has voted. The best way to get people to vote is say, I voted. Are you voting? Do you have a plan? Please be sure you vote. It's so important this year. You're asking them is probably one of the best ways for them to start voting. And yep.
Hi, I just want to jump in because there's quite a few questions in the chat.
I answered some of them, but I'm seeing there's some more. So,
yep.
Okay, this is my last slide.
Okay.
I'm going to put up that's thank you for attending. This is the link that I mentioned, I'm going to put that in the chat so that you can just click on it and go to it. It's my sheet that I put together, and it has a lot of links to other places that you can, so that you can find information. All right, so let me go through the questions here. All right. So I hope that I answered the question about can you take it to the post office or the drop box with someone else. No. Well, we put that in. All right. A college student is still out of state, receives a ballot in New Jersey. Can the ballot be mailed by parent, returned so that parent can drop the ballot? Okay. This is what I recommend with college students. And I was recommending all along, do not put their dorm address, because I was afraid, who knows, they started in August, but by this time of year, they might be back home again. If the parent received their ballot and the kid is at college or wherever, but they're still registered in New Jersey, yes, mail it to them wherever they are. They can mail it back from wherever they are because they have postage on it. You don't need to worry about them finding a stamp and everything like that. So that was Scoil J. Did that answer your question? Hello?
Just that last part I didn't get. He can mail it from his
You can mail
state
it
of
from wherever
residence?
he is. Yeah, it does not matter where you mail it from. This is why it's a vote by mail ballot. They don't check that because they're registered in Chatham. It came from Chatham or something like that. I've had that question before. Okay. What happens to the ballots after they leave the supervised ballot box at the police station? Are they supervised, protected on their way to the Board of elections? What to stop tampering for during that critical transfer period? As I said, they are by two people that are, I believe, employees of the Board of Elections. So because of that, they are bound to follow the rules of the Board of Elections. It would be, you know, and it's two of them. I really don't think anything's going to happen. Two of my kids have not received their ballots yet. I would give it until Friday the latest. And if they haven't received them, call the county clerk. They're the ones that send out the ballots. Call the county clerk and have them request other ones. Judy asked, how can I find out my voter ID? Call the county clerk. It will be on your ballot. It's on my envelope soaking wet on the floor, but it is on the envelope. It's underneath the little scan and it says ID, and you will see that's your voter ID number. Can I send in a signature update after I sent in my ballot? That's a good one. I would call the county clerk and check. I would think if you get it there before they actually verify your signature, which is the 24th, they start doing that on the 24th. So if you get it in by the 13th, they will update your record, and then it should be okay. And again, if it doesn't match for some reason, they have to send you the letter to give you a chance to correct it. But I would call the county clerk just to be sure that I'm right on that. All right, this is something, yes, I mentioned this in the beginning. Please clarify the provisional ballot. I'm being told that they will not be counted. They are. The provisional ballots will be counted unless you already sent in your regular ballot. Every ballot is counted. That's old school. It was a long time ago, I think, when it was an absentee ballot, and they only counted provisionals, I think, if they needed them to, like if they had 10 of them, but the person lost by 7, yes, they'd have to count the 10. If they lost by 2, and if they lost by 20, and there was only 3 or 4 ballots, they wouldn't necessarily count them. But every single ballot that is verified to be counted is counted. The only reason the provisional would not be counted is if it's a second vote.
I think that's the last question.
Yep, it is. And let me just see, I make sure that I answer the questions that were in here. Oh, I've heard that there are places ballots missing the privacy envelope will be discarded. Yes, that is true. If you do not have the privacy envelope, which has your information on it, it will be discarded. Call the Board of Elections and get a new one. Is it legal to make a how-to video demonstrating how to fill out the ballot? Exactly. I'm doing it now. I remember somewhere we can't take pictures in the polls. Yes, that is correct. What if you don't receive it by your mail-in ballot by election day? My recommendation is if you don't have it by Friday, call and find out where it is, and they can send you another one. You can go to a voting place and vote in person. It will be on a provisional ballot though, and you do not need any proof. The only reason you would need ID is if when you signed on somehow, you know, when you didn't, like if you sent your paperwork into the, through paper, and you didn't include a driver's license or a social security number, there will be a note in the book, needs ID. And I'm guessing, I don't know what would happen in that case, whether or not you would actually get a ballot in the mail. I'm not sure. How we can verify that our ballots are received on time and counted. Sign up for the link to check your ballots and check your online, because you'll see if it was received, and then later on you will see if it was accepted. How will Morris County ensure that all valid votes will be counted? Anything that's not got a mistake will be counted. And like I said, you can drop off your ballot at the Mendham Borough, at the ballot drop box anytime from as soon as you get to ballot. I think we've pretty much gone through all the other.
I think you definitely covered it. There is another question that has to do with the census that's in the chat, and I'm not quite sure what he means, but you can tackle.
Aliens are, I think, undocumented. You have to be a U.S. citizen. If you are a U.S. citizen, wait, I take that back. You know what? You have to be a U.S. citizen to vote. I'm not, yes, everybody, actually I take it back. Everybody that has an address should be counted in the census, because they are living there. They are using services, and it's so important that we have the correct count, because it creates our voting districts, and it determines what money you get from the federal and state government to the municipalities. So the census has nothing to do with citizenship. They took that question, never got on there. They tried to put it in, but they didn't.
Right, because you do have a lot of legal residents who may not be citizens, but as well, people who've immigrated here, but they just haven't become a citizen yet.
Well,
any other
aliens,
questions before we close out? Any other? I was taking notes during the call, and the number one reason for rejections is a late ballot. So be like Nike, just do it.
I should use that swish in there.
You fill out your ballot, and do your homework on your candidates, fill out your ballot. And here in Mendham Borough, you can go right to the police station, and there's the drop box right out front. So it's really the easiest thing you can do. But, make sure you get it in on time. You can track your ballot, as Barbara described. And if you do wait and want to vote at the polls, again, it's going to be a paper ballot. So it's a provisional ballot, but as Barbara said, it will be counted. All the votes will be counted. So thank you so much, Barbara, for doing this. This is an important election, from bottom of the ticket to the top of the ticket. As Americans, it's our sacred duty, I think, to vote. So please vote. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I think you all have my email by now. And thanks for joining this evening. And I'm glad we're getting some comments in the chat that people enjoyed the presentation.
Thank you.
Thought it was beneficial.
And I'll say one thing: if you want to help, go to go to the website, go to the League of Women Voters, and send an email, and it will be forwarded on to me.
Great. Terrific. So I think that concludes our presentation for this evening, and it will be recorded. It is